Hey Forex Fortune Hunters, Tom Wilmot, welcome aboard. Whether you're a new person just investigating this series of videos on Metatrader or whether you're a beaten up old veteran trader who's been one of our subscribers for a long time, we appreciate all of you and we thank you very much for your great comments and questions below the videos each time we log a new one on board. In this video, we're going to talk about the new template that we have in front of you right here. We're calling it Symbol Crossover Hot, and I'll explain why, and I'll explain how we're going to use it, what the subtleties are. In addition to that, I'm going to get involved with explaining a new indicator that I've never talked about before. It's not new, it's new to our series. It was invented by Bill Williams, and it's called Fractals. So if these two things are of interest to you, especially right before the Fed makes its big announcements tomorrow about fears of inflation, this is on June the 16th tomorrow. Well, if that's all of interest to you, let's create some ways that you can make big money watching the volatility in the market and limiting your risk. Hold on to your hat. We'll get started right after this. Okay, Forex fortune hunting friends, let's begin at the beginning. We're going to quickly review our three indicators and our new template, which we call Simple Crossover Hot. And the reason for that is that we have the T3 Tilson 24 in violet, this line right here. We have the 6 and 12 EMA. We've increased the speed of that by moving back from the 12 and 24 EMA. Those bands work fine as well, but this was a little quicker and you can see how it can be used. The first thing you need to know is when you pull back into the bands and you don't take out the 12, then you have a pretty good continuation signal going on. It means you're going to be going higher. This is a 15-minute chart. You can set it to shorter and it will work just as well and limit your risk even more. But the bottom line here is that if you have an entry in this area, even up here, this is a nice move to the north, 28 pips over a period of about 3 hours. So you've got a great trade going on in this area, and it's all due to the fact that you're not trying for stupid counter trend trades back like this, and oh, we're overbought, so let's sell it. No, no, no. Now, if you take out the 12, what you would like to see is a very rapid, I call it switcheroo. You want to get right back above that 6 EMA. That's an indication also of a lot of buying interest. We had a pullback and then instantaneously almost we got right back in the saddle and started heading higher. So notice that these are the two kinds of signals you want to be watching for. Pullback below the 6 but not taking out on a close the 12 EMA, and then a switcheroo is another opportunity to get involved in the trade. Notice over here we have this pullback. We took it out and we waited for quite some time. This was early in the Asian session. This was a nice trade, an up move. We have the 6 above the 12 EMA, pull back into the bands, don't close below the 12 EMA and so forth. And we had a nice move. The Asian session is typically muted. So you're down in here and you got a 10 pip trade. Nothing wrong with that if you're just scalping away all day. But bottom line is you want to wait until the big money comes in the London and US time sessions if you're going to look for extreme volatility. Okay. Two more things. Number one, notice with our RSI bands that we do pull back here. In conjunction with a switcheroo, we have a bounce right off that top line and a move higher. That's a perfect indication. You can set your sights on that anytime you're watching the trade, no matter the time frame. Lines up perfectly. Okay, now the second thing I promised was that I was going to talk about a new indicator, new to us that is, and how to find it. I want to show you Bill Williams Fractals. And we go to indicators. These are typically included with most brokers' packages. Look down here, Bill Williams. I have it up here now in my most recently used for sure. But if it's missing from this area here, look down here. There's Fractals. I make it orange. I don't have to make them too big. I can change whether they appear in all time frames or just selected time frames. I left it that way. And now we've got our orange, and we'll click OK. Now notice here, and I hope you can see them in the video, and maybe actually what I should do is go to indicators. That was, by the way, right click on the screen, go to indicators, go to fractals, edit. Let's actually make them bigger just so you can see them more clearly. And so that's a little better perhaps. What happens is this: a fractal is very simple. If the high of this particular candle is above this candle that preceded it and this candle that came right after it, then you get a fractal. Notice here, this low was below either this low or this low, and you can see when you're headed higher, these are the ones you want to be looking for. Okay? Notice that. These are the counter trade signals. Don't worry about them. If you're here, notice this is the one we wanted to look for right here. We were in the midst of this. We went higher. Okay? So there you go on this one. Going the other direction. Now we've crossed back down over our T3 Tilson, and we're in a situation where we've had our aqua symbol come flying forward. Our medallion shows we pull back into the bands, but we can't get back past this red line. We have a medallion here because the high is a little bit higher than this one, and so you'd be in a position when that medallion appears to be here, and we've got a 10 pip trade to the downside. So you have to be a little careful because it doesn't appear until this is in place. So if this is too long, be careful. Don't get into the trade if you think this is a little more suitable, even though it's very late in the day, because this isn't quite as big. Okay, so you have a situation here where you can go from here to here. That's a 5 pip trade, but it's, as I said, late in the day, 3, 4, 5 o'clock for us on the East Coast. And but the idea is the same. We didn't take out the 12 EMA. We had a cross down below, and so there we are in our ability to take an entry at this level. Okay, we'll be back with more after I set up the chart a little differently. Okay, fortune hunters, I've moved the chart forward to Thursday of last week, which was the 10th of June. And you can see this incredible amount of volatility going on. And if you are, were not aware of what's happening, this happens to be the announcement of the euro interest rate, which was last week by the European Central Bank. And if you don't know, if you get into a situation where you're not sure what's happening in a particular area of history that you'd like to know more about, or even in advance if you'd like to warn yourself that this might happen, here's the best way to do that for sure. It is the Forex Factory calendar. That's the one you use. This won't help you see instantaneous results for announcements. You'll have to find other sources because they only post, 5-10 minutes after something happens, which in some cases isn't too helpful. You may want to listen to Trade the News or another one of the sites that'll give you kind of instantaneous results on these announcements. But let's take a look. Here's the calendar, and you can see it's this tab right here. Notice that this is now set to this week, June 13th and 19th. And if we go down here, you're going to see on Wednesday, this is, let's see, where are we here? U.S. down below. Sorry about that. Here's the 2 p.m., interest rate announcement of the Open Market Committee and so forth. So that's tomorrow afternoon, and so beware if you're not going to be watching that. But let's show you another way. If you come to Forex Factory and then you go backwards 1 week, and then we go to Wednesday of last week, well, this is when we started our work, and you can see that there's not much happening here, all yellows. There's one CAD. The Canadian dollar had their rate statement, and you probably, if you pulled up that chart, could see a variety of ups and downs that were related to that. And we'll do a video sometime soon on how to use a shorter term 1 minute chart to take advantage of the volatility in those. I wouldn't use 15 if I were you. I'd make it much shorter time frame. But in any event, then Thursday, notice there's the ECB press conference, and there's the monetary policy statement and the refinancing rate, which was no surprise. It was left at 0, but the fireworks start up in this area here about 8:30 in the morning East Coast time. Okay, so now that we know those things are causing this volatility, we come out in the afternoon, things quiet down a little bit, and then we get into Friday of last week. And we have this particular downdraft. And this was caused, probably isn't going to see it unless you are watching the news on forexfactory.com or just being involved in any of the sites that give news headlines. But this is when the big talk of U.S. inflation began to really cause some trouble for the euro and the U.S. dollar. Trouble in the fact that the U.S. dollar took off to the north. Now, anybody that's read the book that I did in 2016, which was the Forex trading strategy called Zeelander Flytrap, which is still on Amazon, and I'm very proud of it. In any event, you will know from that book that the key and really most important activity that you have to pay attention to is central bank interest rate policy. And given that inflation was heating up in the States with high producer indexes and so forth, historically high, we see a situation where there's an anticipation that the Fed may have to raise rates if this continues. And if they ignore it at their peril. That's what the headlines have all been saying, and anybody who's been watching carefully will know that. Now, here is the result of that, a big downdraft move, even on a 15-minute chart on Friday as you headed into the weekend. And this move to the downside was as many, even on the euro, as 83 pips. So that's a heck of a move. One standard contract, $800, not a bad day's work. Now, one other reason that I wanted to bring this chart to your attention with the fractals is that many of you know from watching in the past that moving averages are really a proxy for trend lines. Basically, you can see that the trend line is headed lower, and you could even make this faster if you wanted to. You could make this 17. Let's change that to 17 and see what happens here. You can play around with these, of course, if you'd like to. And I bring this over here. This is what I was tinkering with for you. Okay? Notice that you can bring it down so that it gets closer in these downtrends. But notice also with our fractals, I'm going to show you this now to show you how you can do it. Here's the fractal. This could, in fact, be the outer trend line here. But notice what you do if you connect these, and you connect the fractals right here, okay? You're in a situation now where you have a pretty easy way to decide what the actual trend line is telling you. And it isn't until you get down here and you have a crossover of that trend line, which you see is coordinated with our 17 down here. If you'd like to speed it up, feel free, but that's our 17 T3. Notice the trend line, and that's the first time that you begin to get a little relief rally from the full day's downward trend of the euro versus the USD. Now, that is occurring all the time, not as clear indications as this one, but you can use your trend lines, inward and outward trend lines, to measure when you want to be especially careful. Now, notice here, if you pulled up, that this kept right in line. It pulled in between our 6 and 12 EMA, but it couldn't take out the 12. Here it had a fractal in this area. Notice that this is a great way to get a scalp in, if you'd like, on a 15-minute chart. This is a pretty clear indication. Your upward pips lost risk exposure is 10 pips, and you're downward to the next fractal, a nice 28 pip move. So even if you've missed the entry, this can help you as you're looking to see how to get into a momentum trade and capture your share of pips. Okay, guys, please subscribe if you have continuing interest in the Metatrader work that we're doing and in our templates. is many of you know, we offer these indicators for free, no charge, if you follow the link below this video. And please feel free, as I said, to leave a comment or a question should you have any. Best of luck tomorrow, limiting your risk and watching for good reward on that Fed announcement. See you next time.